Hi there, I'm Mindy Martell, president of Clothier Design Source and the Apparel Academy. And I have Kelly here today. You want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Kelly Kronberg. I am operations manager at Clothier Design Source as well as prototype manager.
Yeah, and so between the two of us, we have developed thousands and thousands of apparel products. I'm not even sure of the number anymore.
Yeah, it's up there.
We're getting up in definitely multiple thousands. So we've been in the industry for quite a long time, and we wanted to share this video because it's a subject we talk about behind the scenes quite a bit, is when a new apparel entrepreneur receives their first sample or prototype. It's an emotional journey, I guess. And there's a lot of sort of pre-education that we think it would be helpful before you receive your first prototype to understand the industry and what's the purpose of your first prototype and what to expect is really what we've been talking about.
Yeah, so if you work with us, the process goes, we source your materials, we do your design, and then you go into prototyping. And in prototyping, that's the first time that they're actually fabricating a pattern for your product, your invention. It's the first time that we're really trying to get something that's been on paper to be a three-dimensional product. And I think oftentimes people are expecting it to be perfect the first time, the stitching to be beautiful, the fit to be 100% spot on, and that's just not the case because we are basically inventing that product and engineering that product for the very first time. And we're not pulling from stock patterns, we're not pulling from stock samples. It's really putting it on the computer and making it a three-dimensional project for the very first time. So it's usually a little rough, the first sample or the first prototype that you're gonna get. And that's normal, like that's okay, because we're also learning a lot about your fabric, about your product, about what's not going to work. And learning about what's not going to work is very important for us to make sure that we know then what will work for your product.
Yeah, and I think probably the key word I want to get across in this video is it's normal. And you will find, I think this video will be helpful if you're working with our company or any factory or company in the world. You will find it's a process to develop a product. And the funny thing is, we were talking about right before this video, is I think people expect that if you're making a hard goods sort of product, like if you're inventing a ergonomic coffee mug or something like that, you would expect your first prototype to not be perfect, and then you'd have some feedback about the way it was gripping and what you'd want to change on it. And that is exactly how the apparel industry works as well. And I think there's a stigma because, first of all, apparel's too cheap. It's made with slave labor around the world, blah, blah, blah. But I think because you can go get a t-shirt for $19.99 very easily, people think, oh, so it's easy then, right? I think that's part of it. There's a whole bunch more that goes with it. But anyway, expect the development process. You are developing a product, which is a process. You're going to have a first proto. You're going to fit it. You're going to give feedback. If you're working with us, we can kind of partner with you through that process. And then you're going to have tweaks and you're going to get another prototype. And it's going to be a little better. And then you're going to fit it and wear it and use it. And then you're going to have some more tweaks. And then you're going to have a third prototype and it's going to get even better. And at that point, it depends on how complex your product is. It could be like we would expect A lot of protos are done around that third round.
Mm-hmm.
They're perfect, finally dialed in, everything's great. If you have a highly complex product where it truly is an invention, like, we made these really cool overalls that like could carry a 6-pack of beer in them, right? So like for tailgating, a funny, goofy invention, but like that's going to take more prototypes because we're inventing something that's never been done before. But even if it has kind of been done before, there's something about your product that's unique. That's why you're making it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be making it. And so it's going to be a process.
Mm-hmm. And there's been times when we've been done in 2 prototypes. Mm-hmm. And then, there's been times where it's taken 10 plus. Mm-hmm. There's a style that we're working on now for an inflatable pant. We've prototyped it multiple times and it was good enough. And then it went into testing and we did beta testing on it, and now it's back in development and in prototyping, and we're probably on 11 or 12, and we're still even just doing testing at this point. So depending on the product and the complexity and the void you're trying to fill in the marketplace, it could be done in 2 to 3, or it could take 10 to 20.
Yeah.
It really does depend on the product. So
another point I always like to bring up is I've been developing apparel since 1998, and I have never, honestly never, ever once looked at a first prototype and said, yep, it's good to go, let's move to production. Mm-hmm. It's never happened.
Right.
Have you?
No.
Yeah, so ask anyone in the industry, you will never move right to production from your first proto. Mm-hmm. It's extremely rare. It's so rare that I've never seen it. You've never seen it. I've asked a lot of people in the industry if they've ever seen it. No, but I think I've heard of like one person saying, yeah, one time I had something that went.
Right.
But even like simple things like a bandana, I guarantee they go to 2 prototypes because of the hem. They want the hem skinnier, or the print on it had to get moved, or the print was peeling and cracking, or like who knows, right? Like the simplest thing you could possibly think of, you're still going to be found.
Yeah, there's an established brand that we work with right now. We've been working with for years and years and years, and we have established what their fit, like what fits well for their brand, and they keep developing new styles for each season. And even them, like we have an established fit, we have an established like grade rule and size chart for them, but even if we're just adding a turtleneck onto a crew neck shirt, we still did 2 prototypes, and then before we were able to go into grading and production. So it's even the littlest things, changing the sleeve, changing the inseam, oftentimes will result in multiple iterations before.
So once you become seasoned and your brand is rocking and you've developed, several products, you'll look back at this video and be like, oh yeah, totally got it, I got it. But if this is your first time, just like mentally prepare yourself, to be resilient and to understand you're going to get a proto and there's going to be changes, and that is okay and that's normal. Because it can be really emotional, right? It's your first proto and you've been dreaming this up in your head for sometimes years, and then you get it and you're like, it's not like totally what I wanted it to be. And it's like, it's okay.
That's normal.
It'll get there for sure, right? If you're working with the right partner, it will for sure get there. So when you work with clothier design stores and we quote out your project, we include multiple prototypes in that plan. Mm-hmm. So when we're planning on working with you, we want to give you the full scope of what the future is going to look like. Because we don't want to surprise you. I think there are other companies that will say, well, this is how much a sample is, and you just go pay for that sample. But really, we want you to be prepared budget-wise, timeline-wise, you know, mentally of the process of what you're getting into. So we quote and we write up your project plan with that in mind. We want you to be prepared for all of those reasons, so you're not feeling, you know, blindsided
Yeah.
exactly when it happens. So if any other companies do quote just one sample at a time, it doesn't mean they think it'll be done in one sample. They're really just giving you a little piece of the puzzle. All right, well, happy designing.
Yes, thanks.